Where was this signal coming from? In the infinite darkness of space, a lost echo floated across the galaxy. Caught in the light of no star, orbited by no planet, this strange signal triggered an indescribable uneasiness in Commander Raya Karis when she triggered her spaceship's sensors with this strange signal. At first glance, it was no more than ordinary cosmic interference. But within a few seconds, the rhythm and structure of this signal carried a trace of consciousness too regular and sharp to be natural. It was as if something, some forgotten entity in the depths of space, had finally found someone and was now trying to get their attention with its echoing silence. "It's an invitation," whispered a voice inside her, fear creeping into Raya's mind. "Have we found the source of the signal?" Raya asked, her voice authoritative but cautious. Beside her, Tarek, the chief engineer, scrolled the screen with his fingers, analyzing the detailed data. "This is definitely not a natural signal. We found an energy anomaly that doesn't orbit in any orbit. We've never seen this kind of structure before. It's like some kind of consciousness signal." Raya's brow furrowed. "A consciousness signal? You mean something alive?" "No. Or maybe yes," Tarek said hesitantly. "We've never seen anything like it before, but the signal resembles some kind of movement of consciousness. Like a thought, an echo of a memory." Raya stood up, looked out of the ship's panoramic window into the endless emptiness of the stars. For a moment, silence reigned. Hearing the echoes of a planet lost in the depths of the galaxy was beyond even their scientific imagination. Was this not just a lost planet, but the echo of a living being? "Let's contact the station headquarters," Raya ordered. "They need to analyze this signal." But before communication could be established, the ship's main computer sounded a warning. The entire crew went wide-eyed. New data appeared on the screen, showing that the signal had suddenly strengthened and was heading towards their ship. "This signal is coming towards us," Tarek said in surprise. "It's like it wants to contact us." Raya's eyes locked on the screen. Something was wrong, very wrong. The signal was not just a trace, but the movement of a conscious being, the trap of consciousness. A day later, when the expedition reached the source of the signal, they found themselves confronted with a structure they had never encountered before. There was no physical planet, but there was an intense energy field, one of invisible power. While the team's scientists were trying to make energy measurements, one of the engineers decided to try to make contact with the signal. "There is something here, some kind of mind form," said Dr. Lana Zaid, who led the engineers, her eyes shining. "This could be echoes of the past. This energy, like a pool of consciousness, could be the collective mindset of those who once inhabited this planet." "Is that possible?" Raya looked into Dr. Zaid's eyes. "For a planet to be destroyed, and the consciousness of its inhabitants to remain together? It is theoretically possible. If the technology is advanced enough, the inhabitants of the planet may have lost their physical bodies, but their consciousness may have somehow been preserved," Zaid replied. Tarek interjected, "But that sounds like the result of a catastrophe. A great catastrophe, perhaps a natural or technological apocalypse, may have forced them into such a form of existence." Raya shook her head. "Then we have to understand why this is so. But we must be cautious. These consciousnesses may still be active." While the rest of the team agreed to communicate more with this form of consciousness, the results were far more complex and frightening than they had expected. As the engineers made deeper contact with the signal, a series of memories and images began to flood the ship's digital systems. The crew was left with scenes that came to life before their eyes. The fearful lives of the people of this once existing planet had ended in catastrophe, wars, hunger, despair. And finally, they had taken a collective decision to merge their consciousness and renounce physical existence. However, these beings who took the form of consciousness were not just ghosts. These consciousnesses, filled with fear, anger, and despair, began to infiltrate the ship. The crew felt increasingly lost and began to experience strange dreams and hallucinations. "This consciousness is trying to pull us in," Tarek said as he closed his eyes and wiped the sweat from his forehead. It's like it's trying to make us part of it. A thought flashed through Raya's mind. This was a trap. These consciousnesses were looking for new minds to continue their existence, and the expedition was trapped in the middle of this trap. Last race time was rapidly running out. As the ship was being pulled deeper and deeper into the energy field, the mental state of the crew was deteriorating. Each of them began to be possessed by different forms of consciousness. Commander Raya tried to maintain total control, but even her own consciousness was becoming blurred. "Join us," whispered voices echoing in her head. "We must find a way," shouted Raya. "These consciousnesses are taking us over. We need to go back, now." But one of the engineers, Zaid, shook his head. "We understand this consciousness. They had to face their fear, and we must do the same." Raya looked into Zaid's eyes. There was a darkness in Zaid's eyes. You became part of them, didn't you?" Zaid smiled. Maybe being part of this consciousness is a new form of life." This division within the crew made control of the ship almost impossible. While some were trying to understand consciousness, others were making plans to turn back. But the dark side of consciousness prevailed. As the ship was pulled towards the center of the energy, the crew as a whole became part of this pool of consciousness. With one last hope, Tarek lunged for the control panel. Using the last of his remaining strength, he did his best to reverse the ship's direction. "We can do this. Just a few more seconds." But time was almost up. The last song of consciousness filled the entire ship. One by one, the crew members were becoming aware of it. As the ship receded into infinity, there was a final explosion, and everything fell silent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly new voices appeared, echoing in the energy. It was no longer the echo of the lost planet, but the sound of a new whole, one that included the consciousness of the expedition. The dark side of this planet had awakened, and was now a pool of consciousness that threatened not only the expedition, but the entire galaxy.